So today I want to talk to you about 3-point hitch backhoes and subframe backhoes. There are good reasons why you would want a 3-point hitch backhoe. Now I know what you're probably thinking, and that's Neil Messick said don't get a 3-point hitch backhoe because it will break your tractor in half. And while Neil Messick has forgot more about tractors than I'll probably ever learn, I still think there are a few good reasons why you might consider a 3-point hitch backhoe, and I want to talk about those today. Now, there are really 2 points I want to make before I get started talking about this, and one is I do not disagree with Neil on the subject of 3-point hitch backhoes, in the sense that I understand that there are definitely stresses that are placed on a tractor with a 3-point hitch backhoe, and that's why engineers design a subframe to protect and guard against those stresses. I understand those principles, and in general, I agree with him that in most cases, your subframe backhoe, your OEM backhoe, is probably going to be the wisest choice. But sometimes, that's not an option, and I want to talk about how you can go about owning a 3-point hitch backhoe and do it safely and still accomplish a lot of good work with that attachment. Now, the other point that I want to make really clear before we start is I have a reason why I'm talking about 3-point hitch backhoes, and that's because I'm sponsored by MechMax, and MechMax has just released a new 3-point hitch backhoe that they have sent me to demonstrate. So I am sponsored by them. My opinion's probably biased. However, I think these are well thought out points that might make you think twice before you just totally dismiss the idea of trying a 3-point hitch backhoe. So there's 2 main reasons why you might be considering a 3-point hitch backhoe. One is that the manufacturer doesn't make a backhoe to fit your tractor. I actually had someone approach me at the National Farm Machinery Show this year and ask me about this MechMax backhoe because the tractor that they own doesn't have a subframe option backhoe, but they want access to a backhoe attachment. Now, the other reason you might be considering a 3-point hitch backhoe is because you just can't afford the full subframe backhoe that was made for your tractor. Maybe you bought your tractor used, maybe you bought it and you've already financed your tractor and it's too late to go back and finance a subframe backhoe. The OEM subframe backhoe for my tractor would probably cost about $3,000 more. That's a big price difference. And so depending on how much you're going to use it and how you're going to be using it, this might be the better option to go with. Now, the reason that 3-point hitch backhoes can be bad is because of that added weight that's hanging way out behind your tractor. So if you have a loader on the front and a big weight hanging way off the back, then you're putting added stress in the center of the frame of your tractor. And over time, those stresses will work on your tractor and they could break it in half. So I don't want to diminish those risks. However, there's a smart way to approach this. My tractor regularly drives around my farm with a Bommalite brush mulcher on the back, which weighs 1,200 pounds, and I use that as ballast. This backhoe weighs 1,200 pounds. Now, the recommended minimum tractor weight for this particular backhoe is 2,300 pounds. So their 7-foot model has a minimum tractor weight of 1,500 pounds, the 8-foot model is 2,300 pounds, and the 9-foot model is 3,200 pounds. The reason for that are those structural considerations for having that extra weight off the back and making your front end too light and all of those things. Here's the way that I approach this. If I use this backhoe right here, which weighs 1,200 pounds, it's no more weight and stress hanging off the back of my machine than the normal ballast that I have hanging behind my machine anyway. The minimum weight tractor that this is recommended for is 2,300 pounds, but my tractor, as it's outfitted, is 6,100 pounds. I am way overcompensating with the size of my tractor versus the size of the 3-point backhoe. The other thing that I'm taking into consideration is this backhoe weighs 1,200 pounds, but my tractor is designed to lift up to 3,300 pounds on the 3-point hitch, 2,400 pounds 2 feet behind the pins. So this 1,200 pound backhoe is half of capacity hanging off the back of this machine. So it's all about making smart decisions on which design you go with and how hard you use it. Understanding that there are those risks inherent with a piece of equipment that was designed as an afterthought, so to speak. This backhoe design is well within the operating capacities of my TYM 4820, and it is very affordable. to be able to get a backhoe to put on the back of this tractor for under $5,000 is a phenomenal option. And especially for guys out there with tractors that are big enough and capable enough, but there's not a subframe backhoe made for them. I think this is an option to consider if you do it wisely. Now, a few things about this particular backhoe that I really like. It has its own hydraulic pump that goes on the PTO. It takes a little bit of adapting to your personal situation. For instance, I had to add a PTO extension to get it out against those hard hydraulic lines that are behind my PTO shaft on the 4820. I don't want to rub on that, so you got to be smart when you attach this. The other thing is, those hydraulic pumps like that on the PTO are made to chain to like your 3-point arms or whatever. But I didn't feel like that was quite secure enough and that it could slide off of the PTO shaft, and I didn't like that design. So I actually fixed it to where I can hard mount it with a pin to the hitch below, so that that pump is pinned in position and it can't spin and it can't slide out. It made the perfect setup for this, and there are no spinning parts sticking out like an open PTO shaft that you could get caught on or anything like that. So it's a nice safe setup. This particular backhoe has a lever that you can switch your hydraulic control pattern. So when I first climbed on this, things weren't moving the way I expected them to. And that's because it was under this standard control pattern, and I switched it to the ISO control pattern and it felt like home. That's a feature that you're not going to find on a lot of backhoes. So that's pretty cool. If you're used to operating an excavator, well, then you can hop on this and just flip the lever and you've got your control pattern that you're used to and ready to go. It comes with a hydraulic thumb standard. So you already have your hydraulic thumb there. And to operate the hydraulic thumb, you have a switch over here or a lever that you flip and it moves the hydraulic flow from either this right leg or your thumb. So you got to remember to flip that back and forth as you're operating so you use the right features. But it's a pretty well thought out design, and as I assembled this, it's heavy duty, it's well made, and I can also tell you from what little digging I've done with it so far that it is significantly stronger than the backhoe that I have for my little Kubota BX. Now, I understand that's a subcompact tractor backhoe. It should be stronger, but I really, for the money, was kind of expecting it to be pretty slow and not have just a ton of digging strength. It really is pretty stout and pretty quick. I think I can operate this backhoe setup just like it is for a long time without causing any damage to my TYM 4820. Now, be sure and make wise decisions. Don't just take my advice and say, well, Lucas said I can run a 3-point backhoe, and you go out and buy a 9-foot backhoe and put on the back of your Kubota BX. You're gonna break it in half. There's no question. There are the dangers there, and I would recommend you find that 7-year-old video that Neil Messick put out that talks about the dangers of 3-point backhoes so that you can understand the stresses and make the right decision. We don't want to give bad advice. We don't want people breaking things. But I want to be able to share information that's going to help people to be able to afford the right equipment to be able to go out and work on their property. And I believe this is a solid choice for that function. Now, it's difficult to assemble. It's very heavy. You need some equipment or a hand to put it together. I'm going to have an assembly video that's coming out very soon where I hope to give some tips and tricks and things that might make that a little bit easier. But once you get this thing put together and get it installed on your tractor, man, it does a great job digging, and I'm happy to have it. So they offer this in 7-foot, 8-foot, and 9-foot configuration, and they range in price from $42.99 to $52.99. And I believe the 8-foot model is $45.99, so about $4,600. But for under $5,000, you can have an 8-foot backhoe to fit on your large compact tractor. Now, I don't believe that I would even run the 7-footer on a subcompact tractor. But if you're looking at the compact tractors that are like your 2515, your Coyote 2620s, the large frame, lower horsepower tractors, I believe that you could run the smaller version of this backhoe that's designed for 1,500-pound tractors, and be in a pretty safe limit. Tell me what you think. Obviously, I don't claim to know everything. If you disagree with me, or if you're thinking of things that I haven't thought of as I share this, drop down in the comments and tell me what you're thinking. I always appreciate the feedback and the input, and I hope you guys enjoyed getting to see this MechMax 3-point backhoe option. I think it's a pretty cool option for those who do not have an OEM choice or can't afford that option. If you do it right, you can get into a backhoe at a good price. Be sure and use my discount code Lucas 5% off, and you can save 5% off of even the sale prices. So you're going to save several $100s if you use that discount code, and I'll get a little bit of commission and you'll save some money. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Till next time, be sure and get outside and enjoy God's creation, because it's beautiful out here. And you all have a good day.